Hi Taurus, it's Jenny here with your February Tarot horoscope. So we're just going to be pulling a single card from my Salvador Dali Tarot deck for the month of February to see what's going on for you. So the first 2/3 of February or so is Aquarius season, and then we're going to finish off with Pisces. And this is the card we've got for you today. We've got the Hermit card. Okay. So here we have this man in these kind of big monk robes. He's got a little lantern that looks like it has a little body of like a baby or a fetus in there, and a staff here. So this kind of bright jeweled halo there. Lots of blues, deep colors. And I'm just gonna reach for the book here. See what we have to say from the Hermit. Okay, here we go. The Hermit. Healing. It is no accident that the lantern in the picture reminds us of the biblical parable of the wise and the foolish maidens. Wise maidens are on the alert and keep their light at the ready. Dali drew on a portrait of Luca Pacioli, a Renaissance scholar, a mathematical genius, and the inventor of modern bookkeeping, whose actual life shows some parallels to the symbolic meaning of the Hermit. This card is all about evaluating the sum of your experiences and constantly reorganizing your life accordingly. Every human being brings something original and novel into the world, represented by the embryo in the lantern, the homunculus. Above the head of the figure, we see jewels, some of them egg-shaped. Like the embryo, the egg is a symbol of fertility and of the growth of something new. Your light gets stronger as you resolve your own contradictions. If you do not assume responsibility for your life, or if you retreat into incompetence or irresponsibility, you will fail to approach the magnificent power of the Hermit. He exemplifies, rather, a person who tackles his problems when appropriate and solves them. As such, this card is all about using your own light to heal and sanctify your world and to transform the earth back into its virginal state. Practical advice. This card sometimes signals a need for rest and withdrawal, but more often for commitment and effort and for accepting responsibility. Pay your debts, in a material as well as a moral sense. Increase your own wealth, wellness, and well-being, as well as that of your fellow human beings. Okay, this one feels like a for you, Taurus. Since this past month, January, kind of like brought up some kind of heavier storms and some kind of potential for like rocky boats and needing to deal with things that like wanting to avoid crisis, not by turning away from it, but by like moving through it and working through things in that regard. So this kind of feels like okay, you did it. There were some intense things this past month, and now it's time to rest. Now it is not time to launch forward with a new endeavor. It's time for some recuperation, but recuperation and healing as this is also a commitment. So there's this the joined archetypes of the hermit and monks as often being parts of like healing and hospital works. So that's this health and healing, but there's also like the dedicate, a hermit or a monk or a nurse a nun who's like devoted themselves to their study, to their work. There's so much dedication and a full a focus that's more in the day-to-day, every day is a practice and is a commitment. And so whatever that commitment may be, it's not like this explosive energy and showiness necessarily. It's just commitment. And so this is really inviting dedication and commitment to healing. So again, this could mean a full-on retreat. There were things that were happening and now you really just need to like recuperate on your own. But it also doesn't have to just mean that. For some of you that might be correct, but for others that like isolation maybe not necessary, or that you have things that you can't quite put down to go into a full kind of hermit stage in that regard. But you can always commit to your healing. You can always commit to daily practices, to effort, to saying no to things that are maybe going to be taxing on additional stresses in your life that you're like, I'm not up for that right now. Maybe you can delegate or let somebody else pick that up. You don't need to take on everybody's responsibility. So you can just be building in daily practices and just commit, whether it's looking into like booking with health practitioners to help you with your healing, or just doing kind of daily preparation, or making some diet changes, or whatever it is, things that are not just about one big showy change that, you know, that's going to somehow fix your life. It's the dedication, the commitment, that's going to pay into health in a sustainable way. So on the one hand, that actually is probably going to be, for some of you, with that kind of Taurian energy of like, you know, the steadfastedness, you know, like that ox that's just carrying on, kind of plodding through, like has that consistency of energy. This may actually really like fit your energy very well, to just build some practices and just consistently pull at it. So if that does feel like that's supportive for you, especially if it is focusing on body healing and body practices, getting your body involved and moving, just bringing in your kind of earth energy there, especially since we are in Aquarius season for the beginning of February, fabulous February. So that's air season, and air is in that kind of opposition to the earth element, where it feels like, oh, we're just flying, expanding, so much moving around, and it doesn't necessarily, air energy doesn't feel like dedication. It can be exciting, it can be expansive, it can bring in a lot of new things, but the energy of focus and working hard, and continuing to hold true to something and not get kind of blown away by a new idea. Aquarius season is fixed air energy, so it's not the most crazy air energy. There does have a bit of a solidity to it. So it might not be like the easiest for you to hunker into that earth energy, but it also can help you not get stagnant. So if you are wanting to hermit, you do still want it to be like productive, where you aren't just retreating and hiding and shutting the door and just sort of waiting for things to blow over and feeling like that is a productive isolation. You're looking, you know, if you're looking for solitude, it is to a purpose. If you're looking to be away from distraction and bustle, it is perhaps to focus on different ideas or concepts or emotions, or just in being. If it's from a hiding place of that was exhausting and I'm scared and like, I just want to hunker down and never leave my home, that's not necessarily going to be the most positive version of this energy. So this still being an Aquarius air season may help like just sort of not have you just be so solidified that you can't like move forward. So you get to kind of play with balancing that, your natural earthiness and the kind of earthiness of this card with the air energy that's going to be out and about. And again, so that's the beginning of the month is going to be Aquarius season, and that is kind of this opportunity for you to be looking into yourself as the first step to then being able, as you are then able to emerge out of that hermitude, or not just emerging out of solitude as if and now you're done and you jump back into the bustle again, but it's more emerging out of it being about you and just you and your healing into being opening up and able to expand into like healing for others, and what you as a rested individual can then bring towards and offer into the community. So Pisces season, beginning towards the end of February, is very much about the collective well-being, feeling into the empathy and energetics of us as a whole community, with, you know, us and our other human companions, as well as non-human plant, all of the things in the world around us. It's sort of about breaking down the illusion and that we are all isolated individuals versus connected individuals. We are still incarnate as individuals with boundaries, but that is there is still this connectedness that occurs, or that is kind of natural in the universe. So. And in Pisces season, we get a stronger seeing through the veil of those barriers to see the way we are all connected to each other. And so that's one of the ways in which one of the truths that can come up for you in this month is that there can be a lot of pressure or feeling like healing is selfish. Rest is selfish because it only helps you. Helping you is a good thing. It's selfishness is only really, or the downside of greed or selfish is only if you are taking from somebody who needs it to hold to yourself. But just bringing into yourself and healing yourself is always a positive thing. But the fact is, if we see that we are connected and how we are doing our well-being does actively affect those around us, then we see that healing ourselves is actively reciprocated into healing others as well. People that are exhausted, run down, overburdened, it's hard for them not to be snappy or irritated at others, or, perpetuating kind of negative things at other people. So you can see how somebody who has not helped themselves, or, if it's really quite extreme, if they're really quite wounded, they can be actively hurting, harming, and traumatizing other people. You can see how an unhealed and unrested and ungrounded person can actively harm others. And so the inverse is true, that somebody who is grounded and healed and rested now has the abundance and energy to not just pour out and help other people, but oftentimes what some people just need is permission to rest themselves. They don't even need you to come in and help them. They just need to believe that they can rest and that they don't have to feel guilty for that. So other people may watch you taking time and watching you set boundaries, and even people that you feel bad about saying no to and saying, no, I can't take that on. I'm committing and dedicating this time to focusing on my own rest and well-being. You might feel like, oh, I'm letting them down. But what you don't see is they might very well be like, wow, I've never actually really even thought about saying no to other people for my well-being. Like, seeing somebody stand up for the boundaries of their own well-being gives other people permission to do so too. And you may never even see that happen, but trusting that it's always a good thing to be working in healing and harmony for your own self, and it will reciprocate to others. So you just might not see it right away. So especially if we're mostly focusing the beginning of the month and working into to ourselves, then that's good and fine to do at the beginning of the month in Aquarius season. This also might be working with that Aquarius energy of innovation and like creating new ideas, and then manifesting that into like a new concept, technology, a new idea that then kind of brings us all, leaps us forward. Oftentimes we may have these great ideas or concepts, but we don't have the energy, or we're too crowded in our minds in our day-to-day to actually realize them. So sometimes what this solitude might be is to be able to let an idea that's been percolating or budding actually have the space to breathe. So that maybe, say, in the springtime when we roll into Aries season, when we've got more energy to grow and move outward, we'll actually have supported this stage where we've rested, we've nurtured. It's like those little seeds that were in the winter starting to bud underneath. They're not quite popping overhead above ground yet, but they are growing. And if we're just piling a bunch of stuff on top of the soil and we're just too exhausted, this is gonna have a really hard time actually bursting out and budding. So this rest can also just be this allowing this Aquarian creativity to keep growing and building, and then have a chance to kind of get it out a little bit later. So, and it may also, you may sort of feel like if you're looking around and feeling like, well, other people are ahead of me. Remember that last month was pretty, like, had some rocky things for you. So maybe last month for other people, they were able to get into a more restful, growing state, and now they're at the point where they can move forward with what they're doing. But you had it inverse. You had to deal with some things last month, and now you get your rest. So it looks like everybody's, ahead of you, but it was just a different order of doing things. Everybody has different biorhythms and different orders, and we're not all like at the starting block having to go through the same hurdles. We're going through different paths and getting there at different times. So try to, again, in that hermit energy of solitude, not spend a lot of time in the compare game, the compare and judgment or compare and envy, and just see what it is you have on your own plate, see what it is that needs healing. And then you can look up in order to help and to connect again into community, but not look up in order to judge yourself and look up in envy that you're kind of behind or whatever that is, because it's all just perception and you don't know the details of somebody else's experience. And, when you finally come out of your resting state in order for action, that's might be somebody else's time to go down and rest as well. And that's ideal, is that everybody works and rests at different times. So in a community that things are always getting done. If we all rested at the same time and all worked at the same time, you'd have these times of scarcity and overflow, instead of this natural biorhythm that we all kind of create together as a community. So I guess the only other thing here is just that little nudge to paying debts, financial as well as other. So just sort of seeing it's like, you know, when that logbook of like things that you haven't done yet, or, you know, if you've got a bill come due, or, you know, there's some sort of irritation you have that just sort of is always sapping energy from you, of that thing that you know you have to do, or that debt that's still weighing over you. It's hard to really, really rest when that's always pulling at your consciousness. So part of resting is clearing the slate, is paying off the debts as best you can, and then being able to really settle into this period of healing. So just kind of see if there's anything in your ledger that kind of needs to be dealt with. And then, yeah, that's sort of what I'd suggest. And this is a great time also to be hermiting. This, if you're in the northern hemisphere, this is, you know, right at the end of winter, but we're still in winter. So like, oh, we haven't had a lot of light and energy yet. So this is really a good time to recuperate before we get the next influx of spring energy. And if you are in the southern hemisphere, you've just had, you know, you're coming towards the end of the summer, you may have been having a lot of activity. And so this is a nice kind of rest of, wow, that was a, you know, busy energy, summer energy of things happening, that now it's like, you know, I'd like to put my feet up a little bit after an intense summer. So whichever end of things you're coming at, rest is always a gift that you can give yourself. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that, Taurus. I hope you have a wonderful February and very restful. Yeah, best of luck and my love to you.